There comes a moment so subtle, yet so devastating, that it almost goes unnoticed at first. A woman senses a shift. The man who once seemed so present begins to withdraw. Messages arrive later than before. The warmth in his words cools. His attention, once freely given, now feels distant, almost unreachable. And in that instant, a shadow falls across her heart. Anxiety creeps in, fear takes hold, and the quiet ache of loss begins to consume her from within. Driven by this fear, many women respond in the most human, yet most counterproductive way. They do more. They send more messages. They press for answers. They suggest more meetings, searching desperately for the spark that seems to be fading. But this effort, though born of love and desperation, rarely revives the connection. Instead, it accelerates the very decline they fear. Why? Because in the male psyche, neediness is not attraction. It is pressure. It is not love, it becomes a burden. Carl Jung, in his work, The Dynamics of the Unconscious, reminds us that what the soul clutches too tightly slips away like sand between the fingers. The more tightly we hold, the more quickly we lose what we long for. What many women fail to see is that within male psychology, value is tied to mystery. A man desires more strongly what he feels he could lose, not what he perceives as guaranteed. A woman who makes herself endlessly available, constantly present, leaves no room for longing. Overexposure doesn't strengthen attraction, it dulls it. And when mystery dies, desire fades. Imagine for a moment a priceless jewel displayed carelessly on every street corner. At first, it might draw attention, but soon its uniqueness vanishes. It becomes ordinary, something to glance at and pass by. But a jewel that is rare, hard to find, carefully guarded, that jewel becomes coveted, even sacred. That is how human desire works. That is how male desire works. Today, I want to show you how to shift this dynamic, not with cheap tricks or manipulations, but through profound emotional wisdom. You will learn the art of strategic silence, not silence as punishment, but as an act of self-respect and self-love. You will see how redirecting your energy back into yourself makes you radiant, magnetic, and complete. And from that place, a man's return, if it happens, is no longer born of pressure, becomes a free choice. And if he does not return, you will have gained something far greater, yourself. Because once you truly understand this, you will never chase again. You will no longer beg for attention. You will embody the quiet confidence of someone who attracts, not out of desperation, but out of authentic inner power. When a man starts to pull away, the emotional reaction inside a woman can be overwhelming. It feels like a loss, not just of him, but of the imagined future you had begun to build in your heart. The thought of shared moments, the safety of his presence, the dreams woven together, they all suddenly feel at risk of disappearing. And that intangible loss carries a brutal weight. Anxiety settles in like a storm. Every unanswered message stretches into eternity. Every cold reply feels like a dagger. The mind runs in circles. What did I do wrong? How do I fix this? How do I make him love me again? Each thought tightens the grip of fear, and the heart shrinks a little more under the pressure. Carl Jung, in Psychological Types, wrote that human beings suffer because they interpret what is happening within themselves as something happening outside. In other words, we assume our pain is caused by the other person, when in truth, the battle is within, between our unmet desires and our fragile sense of self-worth. This inner war is dangerous. It tempts women into behaviors they would never normally consider, begging for attention, sending desperate messages, chasing validation where there is only silence. Yet the more these actions multiply, the more the man's perception shifts. For in the instinctive male mind, attraction does not thrive on desperation, it recoils from it. Neediness carries a scent, and that scent is desperation, and desperation kills desire. Jung himself emphasized in The Psychology of the Unconscious that desire is born not from possession or control, but from mystery, from space, from longing. When you try to force closeness, you paradoxically create distance. You long to hold him closer, yet your fear pushes him further away. You try to secure him and he runs. That is why the first step is not to do more, but to stop, to pause, to breathe, to sit with the pain without letting it command your actions. Because every move driven by fear builds another wall between you and what you desire. Stopping in the middle of that storm is an act of tremendous courage. Yet it is also the first true act of self-love, not directed at him, but at yourself. Many women, faced with the terror of losing a man, instinctively double down. They believe that showing up more love, more attention, more availability will remind him of what they share and draw him back. But this strategy, while logical in the heat of emotion, runs counter to how male attraction truly works. Each extra text, each forced attempt at conversation, each attempt to reclaim closeness erodes the bond rather than repairs it. Because the message beneath it all is not love, it is lack. It is not connection, it is need. And human beings, both men and women, feel these emotional undercurrents long before words are processed. He does not pull away because he analyzes you coldly. He pulls away because his instincts perceive a change, an energy shift that whispers of pressure, of need, of desperation. Carl Jung, in Symbols of Transformation, taught that what we deny enslaves us, but what we accept transforms us. Denying our fear of loss only drives us to act from it unconsciously. Accepting it, on the other hand, creates the possibility of transformation. When we refuse to accept the possibility of losing him, fear takes over. Fear bleeds into every word, every gesture, every attempt to hold on. And even if he cannot name it, a man feels that fear, and instinctively he recoils. Think of a flower. A flower does not chase bees. It does not beg to be noticed. It simply exists in its beauty, its essence, and in doing so it draws life towards it. This is feminine energy at its most powerful, quiet, magnetic, undeniable. But when a woman abandons her essence and throws herself into chasing, calling, pleading, she unconsciously sends a message far more damaging than words. Without you, I am not enough. And that message destroys attraction at its very root. The paradox is cruel. The harder you try to hold on through insistence, the faster he slips away. Because in the male mind, conquest is essential. He does not cherish what he feels is already secured. He values what he senses could be lost. This is the wisdom Jung tried to teach us, the paradox of desire, the necessity of mystery, the power of restraint. It is not silence as a game, but silence as dignity. It is not withdrawal as punishment, but as a sacred act of turning inward, of reclaiming your worth. When you do this, something shifts. He may return, drawn not by pressure, but by renewed attraction. Or he may not. But either way, you win, because in this process, you will have found someone greater than him. You will have found yourself. Carl Jung, in The Ego and the Unconscious, reminds us that the soul instinctively seeks what it does not yet possess. In desire lies the vital impulse of life itself. A man does not crave what is already certain. He yearns for what challenges him, what requires effort, what demands pursuit. Desire is born in the tension between closeness and distance, between longing and mystery. This is why forcing someone's presence never works. It is like trying to hold water in your hands by squeezing tighter. The more pressure you apply, the faster it escapes. Desperation steals not only your dignity but also the attraction that once existed. Neediness creates emotional dependence, and dependence destroys respect. When a man senses that a woman relies on him to feel valuable, something primal within him resists. His unconscious whispers that this is not admiration, but suffocation. What he feels is not the freedom to love, but the weight of expectation. And instinctively he begins to pull away. That is why the key is not to do more, not to chase, not to prove your worth with relentless effort. The real power lies in withdrawing, quietly, gracefully, and intentionally. It lies in reconnecting with yourself, in no longer needing external validation to affirm your identity. When a woman stops fighting to be chosen and instead begins to choose herself, everything changes. Her energy transforms. She stops being a demand and becomes a gift. She stops being an obligation and becomes an irresistible choice. A woman aligned with her own worth radiates a frequency that cannot be ignored, a mixture of serenity, mystery, and fulfillment. This energy is magnetic. It draws in not only men, but opportunities, experiences, and relationships that match her elevated state. And it also acts as a filter, because a man who is not ready for such a woman cannot remain in her presence. It is not about pretending to be indifferent or playing manipulative games. It is about real change, the kind that silently says, "I desire you, but I don't need you. I can love you, but I will not abandon myself in the process." And it is in this moment, when you no longer beg, no longer plead, no longer trade your soul for attention, that true magic happens. The man who feels your absence not as a tactic, but as the natural result of your self-respect, begins to see you differently. He sees in you not need, but strength. Not desperation, but depth. A complete, free, powerful woman. Only then can a new connection emerge. One not built on fear or lack, but on genuine admiration and authentic desire. The mistake of doing more in order to keep him close may feel, in the fog of pain, like the only option. But now you know the truth. You should not do more for him. You should do more for yourself. There is a fundamental law of human nature. We value what is scarce. This principle shapes not only economics but also relationships. What is endlessly available becomes overlooked. What is rare, unique, and exclusive is treasured. This law applies with particular force in male psychology. A man values most what he cannot fully possess, what he must earn again and again. When a woman becomes too available, too predictable, too devoted, she unconsciously ceases to represent an emotional challenge. And when there is no challenge, attraction fades. Carl Jung, in The Psychology of the Unconscious, explains that true desire is born from longing, and longing can only exist in distance. Without space, without mystery, desire suffocates. Think of a rare gem hidden deep within a cave. Those who know of its existence are willing to risk, to sacrifice, to venture into the unknown in pursuit of it. Its value is heightened precisely because it is not easily obtained. Now imagine that same gem placed on a table, free for anyone to take. The gem itself has not changed, but its value in the eyes of others has. The same is true in relationships. A woman who guards her inner world, who maintains her independence, her passions, her friendships, becomes like that rare gem. Not because she plays games, but because her fullness makes her inaccessible to anyone unwilling to earn her presence. Overavailability, on the other hand, sends a dangerous signal. It communicates that your love, your time, your energy are available without boundaries, without conditions. And in the male unconscious, this diminishes your value. A man is not only seeking love, he is seeking admiration. He longs to feel that he has won something precious, something worth his devotion. If he senses that no effort is required, that your affection is guaranteed regardless of his actions, his instinct for pursuit dulls. Not because he lacks character, but because this is woven into his psychology. Jung states it clearly in Symbols of Transformation. Passion is ignited when the object of desire is wrapped in mystery and distance. Remove the challenge and you remove the spark. Too often, in the name of love, a woman sacrifices her world. She gives her time, her energy, her friendships, her projects, centering her entire life around him. But this devotion, though sincere, is toxic for attraction. A woman who nurtures her own passions, invests in her growth, and protects her independence sends a powerful message. I choose you, but I do not need you to complete me. That emotional freedom is profoundly attractive. If you wish to remain unforgettable to a man, don't hand him your entire life. Instead, invite him to be part of a life that is already rich, vibrant, and whole. Be a universe in which he longs to orbit, not a satellite revolving endlessly around him. The balance lies in giving affection without urgency, showing interest without dependency, offering presence without losing mystery. When you master this balance, your value rises naturally, not through manipulation, but through restoring the sacred rhythm of attraction. What is common is forgotten. What is rare is remembered, treasured, pursued. You are not meant to be easily obtained. You are meant to be cherished, respected, and admired. When a woman senses a man drifting away, her first impulse is often to close the gap with words, explanations, promises. This is natural, born of fear. But in relationships, there exists a force far greater than grasping: silence. Not silence as punishment, not silence as manipulation. True silence is an act of wisdom. Jung wrote in The Dynamics of the Unconscious that resisting an impulse is not repression but transformation. Silence transforms anxiety into serenity. It turns need into power. It is in silence that your essence shines most clearly. A woman who invests in herself, who grows, who cultivates friendships and passions, radiates a strength beyond words. She does not need to announce her worth, she embodies it. On the deepest level, the soul also requires nourishment. Time spent with authentic friends, immersion in beauty, art, nature, causes that inspire. These things remind you that your life holds a purpose far beyond being loved by another. This is the secret Jung understood. True power comes not from chasing, but from becoming. Not from clinging, but from embodying your own worth. When you do this, you cease to be a need. You become a gift. You cease to beg for presents. You inspire pursuit. And in that transformation, you not only change how men see you, you change how you see yourself. There comes a moment in a woman's life when the energy she once poured into someone else no longer circles around him, but becomes a powerful, centrifugal force that begins to create her own universe. And when that happens, when her joy no longer depends on external approval, something extraordinary takes place. Her vibration rises to a level that not only attracts, but also filters. Because not every man is capable of rising to meet the frequency of a woman who has stopped needing to be chosen. It is no coincidence that when a woman focuses on her own expansion, those who once overlooked her, who once took her light for granted, suddenly begin to feel her absence. But by then she is no longer the same. She has evolved. She has been reborn. She did not do it to prove a point or to make someone regret losing her. She did it because in the depths of her pain, she discovered a radical truth. The most important person who had to choose her was herself. Rebuilding yourself does not mean closing your heart or hardening your spirit. It means opening your heart wider, but planting your feet more firmly on the ground. It means being capable of receiving love without drowning in it, without erasing yourself to keep it. It means looking love in the eye and saying, "I love you, but I do not need you to define who I am." And on this new path, the man who returns, if he ever does, will not find the same woman he once knew. He will find someone deeper, stronger, and freer. A woman who may still love him, but who will never again abandon herself for anyone.
And if he does not return?
It will not matter, because she will have discovered something far greater. Her own life, her own joy, her own purpose. Carl Jung expressed it with piercing clarity in Memories, Dreams, Reflections. There is no coming to consciousness without pain. People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. But you chose differently. You chose the path of awakening. You chose courage. Every step in rebuilding yourself is a quiet victory, a silent anthem of resilience echoing within your being. Because now you understand, it was never about getting him back. It was always about getting yourself back. Mastering your emotions does not mean repressing them, nor does it mean pretending not to feel. It means navigating them with awareness, dignity, and strength. The real difference between an unforgettable woman and a forgotten one lies in this mastery. In the moments of greatest vulnerability, when a man begins to pull away and the natural instinct is to chase, to demand, to beg for clarity, it is here that true value is revealed. It is not revealed by giving in to fear, but by choosing awareness, patience, and self-love. Jung in The Ego and the Unconscious reminds us that our greatest obstacle is projecting our inner conflicts outward. When we let anxiety dictate our actions, we project that anguish onto others, suffocating the bond under its weight. But when we can hold ourselves in silence, when we resist the pull to beg or demand, we rise above the storm and become a lighthouse of stability. Emotional mastery is this: the ability to watch the storm inside without becoming the storm itself. To acknowledge that fear, sadness, and uncertainty are natural visitors, but refusing to let them drive the wheel of your life. Because reacting impulsively distances you from the love and peace you truly desire. Here lies the crucial distinction. Desire is natural. Attachment is toxic. To desire someone is human, even beautiful. But to depend on them for your sense of worth is to surrender your power. A woman who masters her emotions does not erase her feelings. She simply refuses to be controlled by them. She can miss someone deeply and still choose silence. She can long for closeness and still honor her boundaries. She can feel the urge to chase but remain grounded in self-respect. This is not coldness. This is the highest form of self-love. This is the ability to whisper to yourself, "My worth is unshaken. I am whole with or without anyone else." And this energy, this centered, radiant presence can be felt before a word is spoken. It radiates in your gaze, in your walk, in the way you carry yourself through the world.
A woman who no longer needs to be chosen to know her worth becomes magnetic in the most authentic sense.
Emotional mastery does not just transform relationships, it transforms your entire existence. It lifts you off the emotional roller coaster and places you firmly in command of your own destiny. When you reach this level of inner maturity, you are no longer an option waiting to be picked. You are a conscious choice. You are admired not because you demand attention, but because your energy commands respect. Jung, in The Psychology of Transference, wrote, "He who looks outside dreams. He who looks inside awakens." Emotional mastery is this awakening, the realization that what you longed for outside has always lived within you. And so you no longer seek completion in another. You no longer beg for love to validate your worth. You stand complete, knowing your life itself is validation enough. A woman who chooses herself becomes unforgettable. She no longer begs, pleads, or competes. She simply is, and in her being lies an irresistible magnetism. If he returns, it will be because he felt the void of your absence, not the weight of your pursuit. And if he does not return, it will only confirm the truth. You were always destined for more. Jung once said, "The unlived life is a disease from which one can die." To wait endlessly to be chosen, to place your happiness in another's hands, is to die a slow death. But choosing yourself is to live fully, deeply, authentically.
It is to heal. Because when you stop existing as someone's option and begin living as your own prize, the world cannot help but notice.
You no longer show up begging to be seen. You arrive radiating light so undeniable that others must decide, rise to meet you or step aside.
And in both outcomes you win. If he returns, he will return to a woman transformed.
If he does not, you still stand victorious in the empire of your own rebirth. What you have gained cannot be taken away. Your dignity, your inner peace, your emotional freedom. And so you rise, not as an echo of someone else's desire, but as your own voice, not waiting to be chosen, but choosing yourself every single day. In that choice lies your true power. In that power lies your freedom. Because the woman who masters her inner world is the woman who no longer chases the outer world. She becomes the world. She becomes unforgettable. If this video resonated with you, hit like and subscribe to join our journey into emotional wisdom and Jungian psychology. Discover how a single act can transform connections, awaken hidden feelings, and elevate your relationships. Share your thoughts below and stay tuned for more insights on mastering emotions, love, and self-growth.